Welcome back, love beams, to the Frequency Ma podcast. I am Alyssa Ma, and today I want to speak into something that has been moving through the field with pretty great intensity as we move through this Mother's Day portal. So I want to speak into the deeper mechanics of time loops, the artificial calendar structures that keep us spinning inside them, and how days like Mother's Day can actually be used as powerful Black Mirror portals to locate distortion, outdated identity coding, and even magnetic entities, or rather energetic entities that are no longer aligned with our true soul essence. So let's begin with time. So, what is a time loop? A time loop is an energetic feedback cycle, something that keeps repeating itself, not because it's sacred or soul serving, but because it's been coded into our personal, ancestral, or collective systems. These loops often come through unprocessed trauma, emotional triggers, social programming, and even institutional structures like the Gregorian calendar, which replaced more organic, earth aligned ways of tracking time. In essence, these loops are like closed circuits. They don't allow in new information, and they keep us looping the same emotions, behaviors, and belief systems. So, in a sense, they're reinforcing separation, stagnation, and self abandonment. Time loops oppose evolution. So, this is the kind of crux of the issue here, is that they oppose the natural spiral of our soul growth, which is linked to the ascension of Gaia. So time loops aren't just storylines that repeat, they're program cycles. They're anchored in emotion, memory, and false architecture, and they operate like autopilot spells. Time loops can be energetic contracts that we didn't consciously sign, and they thrive on unresolved charge like shame, guilt, obligation, grief, and they're often inherited. They're templated, and then they're repeated intergenerationally. And these loops can appear as normal because we're immersed in a distorted culture, so we rarely question them. And the most insidious time loops are calendared. They're tied to dates that carry mass emotional frequency, like birthdays, anniversaries, and Mother's Day. So, how do time loops work? Or rather, what do these loops do to the soul? So, loops create compression in the field. They are delaying our evolution by keeping us in this kind of karmic feedback cycle where we're not integrating, we're not resolving, we're just kind of stuck in this repeated. Okay, so what's the harm in looping other than kind of wasted time? Is there damage incurred when we find ourselves in loops, and why do we want to escape them? So, when we look at what time loops do to the soul, they create compression in the field and they delay our evolution by keeping us in karmic feedback cycles that are not resolving. They're not allowing integration, they're just repeating these trauma signatures. And, excuse me, they're fragmenting our presence. So they're separating soul from body, truth from expression. And this is not just individual, it's planetary. So loops bind Gaia's grid in false repetition. And as long as we loop, the earth herself cannot spiral forward. So I want to talk into the Gregorian calendar and what I'm calling the holiday matrix. So the Gregorian calendar isn't neutral. It is a mechanized, kind of inverted masculine time structure that overlays an artificial rhythm on top of our organic natural flow. And it entrains us to this linear loop that disconnects us from true sky time, the soul's non-linear unfolding. And embedded within this structure are the hallmark holidays. So these seemingly innocent celebrations that are actually high energy coding points, and they function like emotional spike days. And they're programmed to generate specific emotional outputs, namely grief, nostalgia, obligation, guilt, expectation, or unworthiness. And there's often deeply unprocessed subconscious belief structures that makes these holidays incredibly effective for keeping us in loops where our human energy is being harvested. So essentially, we can look at the Gregorian calendar as a control grid. So it's this mechanical overlay on organic time. And it's replaced lunar rhythms, precessional time, true sky time with linearity, artificiality, and emotional suppression. And it's not neutral, it's a colonial construct that flattens seasonal, soul based experience. And it's synchronized not to Gaia's rhythms or Earth's intelligence, but to economic cycles. And, you know, yeah, these holidays end up being these energy harvesting events that are ritualized for mass consumption, emotional spiking, and identity reinforcement that can then be, reperpetrated on us. So Mother's Day specifically is this ritualized calendar construct, and it can act as a frequency portal that aligns itself with specific energetic entities and fields, especially when approached unconsciously or from a place of obligation, guilt, or pain. So the entities that often kind of link into the energetic field of people passing through this portal, whether you're a mother yourself or whether you're meeting your mother wound, whether you're meeting yourself as a woman who did not bear children, these entities can take a variety of forms. So there are harvesting entities. So these are feeders on our emotional loosh. So they're feeding on unresolved emotion, particularly grief, guilt, and resentment. Also unworthiness and abandonment. So all of which can be triggered around motherhood. So they capitalize on this kind of idealized motherhood archetypes like the selfless mother, the perfect nurturer, to create internal dissonance. And then when mothers or us as children of mothers fall short of the ideal, the resulting shame and pain are harvested as energetic loosh. We also have the false light kind of divine mother programs that appear to be benevolent but end up reinforcing martyrdom, self erasure, and saviorism. And they're often linked to religious overlays, specifically like the Marys that promote suffering and sanctity. And they hook into this kind of sacrifice based timeline where the mother must suffer to be worthy. And obviously, this is kind of an inversion of Mary. I know many of us connect with Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, and with any of these kind of egregoric constructs, we have to practice discernment to understand who we are connecting with, and this is why I particularly like to connect to source. And I don't do a lot of this kind of deity worship, although in our quantum explorations, sometimes figures will make themselves known, but you have to have internal mechanisms for validating and discerning whether what you're interacting with is an inverted archetype, or whether it's an expression of source. So the other types of entities that you might encounter are ancestral patterning entities. So hooking into ancestral patterns, lineage bound thought forms, or disincarnate energies. So from past relatives that hold rigid beliefs about gender roles, family loyalty, motherhood identity. They uphold looping systems like you must keep the family together no matter what, or a good mother never puts herself first. And these can be very, very strong around this time. These can be encoded epigenetically and definitely reinforced by Mother's Day rituals. There's also that larger thought form. We also just have, when we're looking at the kind of Hallmark holiday matrix, we have collective thought forms and archetypal energetics that, and when I say archetypal, I mean like lowercase a archetypal energetics that are cultural mind forms that are created through advertising, media, collective emotional repetition. And this is like the neglected mother, the ungrateful child. These are so, so easy to tap into, even when you're quite conscious, because they hook into things that are quite real in our bodies, right? But then, so when we're looking at the actual mechanics of how these entities operate, it's not that what is happening in our system is false. It is that how the matter within the self becomes exposed is through this kind of black mirror, which is reflecting back illusory and corrupted data. So we'll get more into that a little bit later. So also like the overworked mother, the neglected mother, the overworked mother. And it's like, how much can we justify our state of neglect, of self-neglect, by how busy we are or how big our load is, how big our burden is. So we end up kind of, unconsciously stepping into these energetics on days like Mother's Day, which is why we're talking about it here today, to bring it to light. So I want to get into this kind of black mirror technology. So, this is an energetic technology that can be organic. It can also be AI based, but it's so I don't want to be afraid of this, but I want to name it. So a black mirror can be very useful. And so I want to first, I guess, describe kind of what I'm defining a black mirror as. So this mirror can mirror to us unresolved aspects of self to keep us looping. And specifically on Mother's Day, it can reflect distorted versions of maternal identity back to the self through social media, through comparison, through social scripting, and this can kind of, create things like an identity crisis or emotional spike that keeps you trapped in these like kind of egoic survival patterns. And really, like how all of these entities attach is we're in control of. So I want to bring light to, I don't resonate or approve of the New Age thinkers that talk about entities and thought forms and, all of this stuff in a fear-based way that stokes fear. So I really want to make that clear. But when we bring attention to, how they attach, then we become the primary actor in our own drama. So through ritualized attention, when we have this kind of like mass focus on one theme, this amplifies the field and just makes it much more palpable for all of us. So it's really easy on high energy days like this for us to fall into the embrace of these entity structures through unprocessed wounding. So the wound gets kind of, opened up on days like Mother's Day, where we can feel into either the trauma of our childhood, our relationships with our mother, our relationships to our own journey with motherhood. This is very deep. Through our kind of belief system resonance, so whatever our inherited belief systems are, these really come to the fore on days like Mother's Day. So like, if we didn't have a loving relationship with our mother, we can feel that, that deep pressurizing around the part of the wound that hasn't been resolved and become very vulnerable to that frequency bandwidth. So, how to come into kind of, counterbalance, or how to harmonize this kind of black mirror technology that is at play during days like Mother's Day is to focus on transmuting and disengaging from these entities. Okay, so I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I think that's okay. This is an honoring of the spiral of time. So just to give us some kind of practical means for meeting this, we'll kind of jump into kind of how to disengage from these entities. So, when we are talking about Mother's Day as a ritual, the antidote can be more ritual, but can be a ritual that is intended by you and that is held within your own sovereign field. So you can create a sovereign ritual that, breaks you free from these mass timelines. So, any type of simple calling in of organic Ma codes, organic mothering codes. So invoking nurturance without depletion, boundaries that are, held through the frequency of love, cyclical rhythms, any way that you can plug into the rhythms of Gaia herself. So being outside, being in nature, back to the soil, back to the river. My kids are being so loud right now. Connecting with the womb, however it is that you connect to your own body as a node of consciousness that is connected to this larger dream of Gaia. So you can speak out declarations of disentanglement, I revoke all contracts with distorted mother archetypes and entities feeding on my emotional energy, however you want to kind of, intentionally revoke that entanglement. You could do cord cutting. I kind of want to get into cord cutting, but maybe in another video. But we're really intending to anchor into Earth's living library, her living intelligence, and that Ma frequency, the mother who would never ask you to abandon yourself, who is that current, who is herself that current of unconditional love, and who is united with that, the mother, father, God principle source. It's not coming from a feminine energetic or archetype that is removed from or separated from the father principle. So I want to speak a little bit more into what I mean by Mother's Day being a black mirror, because I feel like I didn't really hit that earlier. But it is a kind of like, it's potent, it's painful, and it's beautiful, but I want to kind of get at the dual nature of like, moving into the poison with the poison itself being the antidote. I'm sure there's like some alchemical saying that better expresses that. But that this can be, a tremendously compressing day. It can be very dense, or it can be very liberatory. So we get to choose how we engage it. So, this is a very encoded day. It is very much hooked into various matrices that are not of organic origin. So, holding Mother's Day as a black mirror day and just going, like, how do I want to orient to this? It really does allow us to tune in and know that this day will be reflecting some of our deepest unconscious scripts about motherhood, about worth, about sacrifice, and visibility. Excuse me again. So for some, it activates grief. We all have our one thing, right? Many of us have multiple things, but there's that like one thing. So like this morning, I was like deep in resentment, and feeling it. And then, it comes in waves, but noticing what's arising is the only action that's required here. So you can tap into some of those other kind of ritualistic elements, but just noticing what is emerging and then noticing what has been patterned for you and where it's anchored into your body and becoming conscious of that. So I feel like the primary ones that emerge are the grief, the guilt, or an urge to perform or pretend, to be kind of like, create your own overlay over your organic feeling. So in some sense, it's like the grief might be more real than the kind of, performative personality that's created to overlay that grief. So dropping into what you're feeling, dropping into your body and allowing what you're feeling to move through. I can really kind of plug us into the mother wound that is that, the mother wound that is multi-generational, and that's held within our system. And so it's like this understanding and disentangling what is yours to transmute. So now that this kind of, the genetic expression that is you holds this pattern, it's up to you to discern what you can actually transmute within your genetic system and what you need to give back to the ancestors, give back to Gaia. So, understanding what attachments from family systems, like these, ancestral contracts that you have to different energetic entities that, just kind of like, grown comfortable. What do they say? Living rent free in this kind of unexamined, subconscious patterning, and allowing those to be evicted from your field. So, what I mean when I say that we are in this kind of like Black Mirror moment is that, back to the kind of looping, is that we're in this distorted feedback loop. So we need and we crave feedback, especially as mothers, people with mothers, people who are all humans. If you have a heart, you crave feedback. So we are looking for feedback in nature. And then if we don't, if we aren't established in those organic rhythms, then this kind of Black Mirror technology has more of a foothold to communicate with us these kind of distorted coding. But here's like the kind of the cool thing is that when we become conscious of this, when we get mirrored back these false or fragmented aspects of our identity, it is an opportunity, a very deep opportunity to discern what is ours and what isn't. And so because this kind of emotional distortion is amplified on days like this, via kind of like, curated comparison or whatever, we can choose whether or not to keep the nervous system looped in, hooked in this kind of re-identification, or with these synthetic timelines, or whether we break that, whether we disidentify with that and we look into that, we gaze into that black mirror and we reject what is there. And I think it's interesting to kind of go into what that rejection looks like. So when we meet an aspect of self that is either outdated, it's not ours, or we desire to part ways with, there are various ways that we can meet that. But if we really, and this kind of goes into the, anytime we're separating with something, when our aim is oneness, allowing that aspect to be infused with compassion. So giving it back to Gaia, giving it back to Cosmic Mother, giving it to Cosmic Father, Cosmic Father. So allowing that there is a field of compassion, a field of love that surrounds that aspect as it goes back to Cosmic Womb to be transmuted and to become part of that fertile terrain of the void. And so rather than this kind of like energy of aggressive parting ways with, when we bring that energetic of aggression or repulsion, we can create a kind of clapback. That's why when we can do cord cutting ceremonies, and then, we're finding ourselves hooked into rather quickly after we do that. And, we do have to maintain that energetic hygiene, and it's not kind of a one and done thing, even if, you're doing it with integrity. But in any case, so where am I now? Okay, so one of the things that, like, if we're getting conspiratorial, this Black Mirror tech is aiming to do is to disconnect us from our own organic architecture. And so it can sever our connection to natural time, to nature's biofeedback, and our like own intuitive rhythm. And so once we see how it functions, the antidote is plain. So, we can kind of lapse into this reaction based state rather than a responsive sovereign one when we don't know how it works. And then once we do know how it works, we can, we understand that entities are amplified during this time, and that this Black Mirror technology can act as a dimensional gateway to allow in aspects of negative agendas to pass through. And we can get very conspiratorial. What we don't want to do is to open up these portals and to engage unconsciously. But when we know that we're being reflected back the unhealed ways that we do invite attachment. So, I mean, it's also, it's like having entity attachments is almost like part of being human. So getting puritanical about it is, not really a way to healing, but it's just bringing that loving awareness, that consistent flow of loving, unconditional love into the self. And then when we meet an aspect of self that isn't self, um, meeting that in a way that is very clear and compelling, and that is in allowance to our soul's organic unfoldment. So, it just becomes very clear on these kind of ritual days that can kind of, aggregate from that collective focus. So, like, how do we reclaim Mother's Day as a sovereign portal of transformation rather than passing through it in unconsciousness? So, it's really, for some of us, it might be quite simple. It's like just choosing not to perform it, choosing to engage it differently, noticing, what archetypal or, whatever entities we're still carrying, noticing what parts of us are like really craving validation, recognition, or softness, and giving that to ourselves. So I think that's a really huge part of it, is that a lot of that a looping or entity attachment is held in place when we externalize the source of our healing instead of insourcing that healing. So, we can come into ceremony to release contracts that are, not true for us. We can ask ourselves, like, am I still performing mother to receive love? Like maybe you're mothering your partner because you think you need to receive love. What are the places where you're allowing your lineage to speak through you without consent? And then, what energy is desiring to clear today so that you can meet yourself, you can meet motherhood or the absence of it in truth, in that light of truth. So, my invitation is to let this day be a ritual of reclamation and not blind repetition. So, we can, I don't want to say invert the mirror, but we can correct this mirror technology and regain sovereignty. So, we can work with this day rather than being worked by it, by these black mirror fields. So, I think I said everything that I want to say. Okay, so I wanted to loop back or spiral back to this like more open architecture of timelessness. So we started off talking about looping. So like let's shift into like the larger vision now. So where time loops are a closed system, our soul, our planet, our feminine intelligence is aligned with open architecture. So it's a living, multidimensional, vibratory framework of timelessness or true time. So this is presence. This is pure presence. This is where we, are led by pure presence. We're not led by these kind of uninterrogated belief systems or subconscious patterns. So this is really the grid that Gaia is reactivating, and it's one that's based on organic rhythm, on spontaneity, and it's based on oneness, and it's spiral based. So when we think of like the closed loop of the infinity symbol, we're like opening that up, It's a spiral, it's non-linear, it honors emergence, and it welcomes truth in every moment because truth is always emergent. We cannot fix it. So this takes us beyond the calendar, beyond the fixity of the calendar. So when we're unplugging from loops and we are entraining ourselves to this open architecture, we do truly kind of settle into our role as these sovereign nodes of Gaia's consciousness. So, in this way, we're co creating this new earth architecture in real time. We're not captive, we're not compressed, we're creators, we're in our kind of creational power. And we are insourcing our power. We are speaking into existence who we are. We're remembering who we are. We're remembering our sovereign power. And this links into, some of what we've talked about on the pod, true sky astrology, organic geometry, kind of cosmic resonance, cellular memory. It's like when we're in the space of open architecture, we're feeling before we're acting. We are choosing with coherence, and we're remembering that original blueprint of our soul. And it's not the template of survival. And so, excusez-moi, we're not separate. One of the things too is like our role in the ascension of Gaia. We're not separate from Gaia's ascension. So I feel like it's always helpful to orient to these larger scales of time when we do kind of feel a likelihood to fall victim to the pressures around these more so like survival pressures, etc. When we plug into this, or when we choose coherence over conditioning, we're really contributing directly to this regenerative grid. So Gaia's, original templating. So when we say no to our own guilt, or when we choose to resolve that guilt, I think that's a more powerful way to deal with guilt. It's not like it's not effective to just push guilt away. There's something we need to do to resolve it. There's some action that we're not taking that we're invited to take. I'm doing that right now with finances that, very long overdue self audit. So it's painful. It can be very painful, but every time we choose that coherence, and it's not even that we're moving directly into coherence, but when we choose truth, when we choose to step into truth, even when it's deeply, deeply painful, then we do contribute to that regenerative grid that then becomes stronger and it becomes easier to access. And then we don't get sidelined by days like today. So every single time that you name a pattern and you choose something new, every time we reclaim a day like today, as Mother's Day, as a sacred sovereign place, you're anchoring in something new that you can then access, and that your daughters can access, that your sons can access, that your ancestry can access. So creating from the future, creation happens from the future. So this is the work, this is the practice. And it's really choosing the power of presence in a world that is really mired in time loops. So, we're contributing to Gaia's correction. We are not here to repeat, we are here to rewrite. So, we are kind of, what did I write in a recent email? The hardcore honeys. We're hardcore. We incarnating right now. It's wild. It's wild out here. So, but we're here. This is like, we are here purposefully to rewrite these codes. And so each loop that you're exiting, it is an open door for your children and for theirs. And so much moving through. So if you're listening to this, thank you so much for being here. And I invite you to mark this day in a way that is an expression of your essence, that is a gift to yourself and Gaia, not moving from expectation, moving from essence. I no longer move from expectation, I move from essence. Claim it. And let's allow that Mother's Day becomes a frequency Ma Day, a moment to remember your origin, your galactic origin, and to reclaim your space and to reclaim time and this kind of, organic architecture. You are the clock. You are the cosmic clock. You are not meant to loop in someone else's story. So, if this resonated, please like this video, share it, like this podcast, share it, read it, etc. We might start doing more of these style solo pods. So let us know. Let us know how this landed. And until next time, we'll see you soon.